Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fifth and concluding event in the 2020 MITL Forum on Advancing Supply Chain and Logistics in Hamilton, Niagara. A big thanks to those of you who have participated to this point, and a warm welcome to a few of you who are joining our forum for the first time today. Today's event is our virtual forum or virtual roundtable in which we want to hear from all of you based on what you've learned so far in this forum and your own knowledge and insight. From the start, our primary objective has been to better understand actions required to improve the functioning of supply chains tied to Hamilton Niagara. Your ideas on that are central to what we are looking forward to achieving today, and we are very excited about what this diverse group of talented people will produce. Before we move on, I want to welcome a special guest speaker for today, Mr. Dale Thulin, who is the Manager of Supply Chain Innovation Performance at the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. A lot of what we expect to experience in this region, to some extent, has already been experienced on the West Coast, as the Port of Vancouver supply chain visibility has improved over the past decade, and the key stakeholders have recognized the value of their close collaboration. As such, we are very pleased that Dale accepted to join us today and look forward to his remarks, which will help us set the stage for today. Special thanks to Dale for speaking with us early in the morning in Vancouver time, and we really appreciate it, Dale, that you accepted to join us that early in the morning. I would also like to welcome Richard Corso from Corlon Strategic Services, who will be leading us today through the event. He will be leading us with the capable assistance of Neolay Corporation. And Richard, I have to admit that Richard has been serving on MITL's advisory board since the Institute's inception back in 2007. And he has contributed a lot to what has been achieved over the years. His contributions today are very much appreciated, and I have no doubt that he will help us successfully achieve the objectives of this roundtable. No pressure, Richard, but thank you very much. Before we pass things over to Richard, I would like to thank our partners at Transport Canada for enabling this platform, for exchanging ideas and fostering collaboration. Now, I'm delighted to invite Louis-Paul Tardif from Transport Canada to offer a few remarks on the Transport Canada's perspective and to have a quick overview of what is already happening to improve the performance of supply chains in this region and elsewhere in Canada. Louis-Paul?
Good morning, Saiedeh. Thank you very much. So I had some difficulties, technical, the past few minutes, but I think I'm coming out okay. I'm clear?
Absolutely.
Good. But unfortunately, I still look at the same age. There was no change there. So
looking good.
Yeah. Thank you very much to Dale. Dale, it's very early, so thank you very much for joining us. And again, just a quick welcome to everybody for attending. This is our fifth. It has been a tremendously well attended. It has been a very successful series of workshops. Thanks to the MITL team, Dean, Mark, and Saiedeh, and of course from Transport Canada, Justin Terry. Justin has done all of the heavy lifting, so this is fantastic. This has been a great thing. So the Hamilton Oshawa Port Supply Chain Visibility Project is part of a few other projects we have ongoing. I would think the more advanced, the more elaborate project is the one that Dale is going to present today. The Vancouver Lower Mainland, as we call it, but really we call it like the Port of Vancouver Visibility Project. We have other projects on the way, but those projects the purpose of those projects is to see if we can um, work with the stakeholders on the efficiency, the transparency, the productivity of our various supply chains. The competitiveness of our supply chain is always something we should, try to improve, and this is what those projects are all about. Today's session, from our point of view, from Transport Canada point of view, is to sort of I wouldn't say the icing on the cake, but it is something that we're looking for in terms of getting a better understanding of the business analytics that people are looking at. We already have made a tremendous progress thanks to the great open-minded and innovative approaches that the Port of Oshawa Hamilton, HOPA, the Hamilton Oshawa Port Authority, has been working with the McMaster, uh, the university, but especially the McMaster Institute for Transportation. And this has already produced, in my view, a tremendous step forward. Now we need to sort of fill in the blanks, fill in the box, and and I think Dale is going to be giving us some advice and some way forward, some thinking that he's been through, and that we're looking forward to. Saiedeh, thank you very much again for MITL to organize to put this all together. It has already been a tremendously a positive uh, series of events in our view, and we look forward to being involved again in supporting your initiative. And I use the word supporting as a key word there. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Louis Paul. Now over to you, Richard.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Saiedeh, and then thank you, Louis Paul. Louis Paul, that's a good update in terms of some of the work that's underway right now, and it's great to see some of that progress that's happening. So folks, we are nearing the end of the journey we started a few months ago talking about advancing supply chain and logistics in the Hamilton Niagara region. We've heard excellent speakers and presentations over 4 sessions that have highlighted local firms, their supply chains, and how we are increasing the regional supply chain's competitiveness, and how some businesses are supporting logistics with new technologies, and how we are leveraging and integrating data for the marine sector, and heard about some of the infrastructure improvements that are underway and being considered in the future. Now it's time to wrap it all up and to identify the main takeaways, provide an assessment of the progress that's been made, and a commitment and a comment on the trajectory we're on. Does it make sense or not? To do that, today our agenda will include a short presentation by Mark Ferguson from MITL to remind us of the key takeaways from our first 4 sessions. To add some context to our discussions, we'll hear from Dale Thulin, who's been introduced from the Port Authority, and he'll talk about some of the lessons learned. I think this will really help in our discussions and deliberations today. We'll then want to hear from all of you as we look forward to our next steps in advancing supply chain and logistics in our region. We will be doing this in a breakout session where we'll ask you to identify the opportunities and challenges that we collectively see. We hope that you will find this part of the meeting engaging and hopefully a little bit of fun. To facilitate this session, Laura Bowley, who is our virtual facilitator from Neolay, will run us through a short warm-up session on their Storm software. We'll then have you go off to your work groups to identify what you feel are the opportunities and challenges facing our region's supply chain and logistics network. Laura will then bring everybody back together. We will share the results of everyone's work. And from here, we will ask all of you to help in prioritizing our list of opportunities and challenges. We all know we can't do everything, but it'll be important for us to identify what's the most important to all of you. We'll then wrap up the meeting with an open discussion and some closing remarks and have you on your way by 12:30. In terms of housekeeping, I just want to make note that we will not be going through long introductions of our speakers. All of their bios will be sent out to you as part of the final report that will be coming out. So let's get started. I'll now pass our meeting over to Mark Ferguson, who will provide a short overview of the key takeaways from our first 4 sessions. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Richard. So an overview of noteworthy results. Here's the basic diary of what we've been through the last couple of months. We've made it to event 5 today. So what I intend to do is just quickly point out a few highlights from each of the 4 sessions, and then basically offer a slide which talks about a few apparent opportunities and challenges that may have arisen from that to sort of get us in the mind frame of thinking about opportunities and challenges. So with our first event, supply chain oriented insights from recent initiatives, we heard from Blake Landry, Niagara region. We heard that Niagara is a trading region with a trading surplus, 90% of exports staying within North America, and that manufactured goods are very important. We heard about a COVID-19 survey that had taken place this year, and that various phenomena were taking place, such as or discussion about those types of phenomena, reshoring, stockpiling, protectionism, and other aspects. I presented something on understanding the supply chains of Niagara region firms based on a survey. And we heard from Niagara firms that general GTHA congestion, as opposed to local Niagara-based congestion, was rated as the most important desired improvement. There was suspicion about pricing solutions, however, from the businesses involved. Logistics costs came across as quite high in those sampled results, and there was also a separate result where people were expressing worry about the high costs that are inherent in the supply chain. We heard from the City of Hamilton and Geotab in relation to truck route master plan initiatives that are taking place. It was sort of a good demonstration of the capabilities of big data and capabilities of Geotab. So essentially, we were talking about commercial vehicles as sensors on wheels, leading to dynamic, always-on truck route master planning technology. In our competitiveness session, we got some interesting data from David Jacques from Transport Canada. And it's just interesting to quickly review some of these numbers. 187 billion in logistics costs in Canada, about 2/3 transportation related. If we look at how transportation costs are broken down, big share to trucking, not so much to marine and air. So thoughts of modal balance may come to mind. We heard from Marcy Birchfield from the Toronto Region Board of Trade. She discussed the Toronto Waterloo Innovation Corridor, the need for an integrated economic zone, and the need to collectively address pain points and competitiveness issues, which was certainly part of what we're working on in this session. And of course, the multimodal strategic vision was central to what she was suggesting. With regard to Challenger Motor Freight and David Short, it was a very interesting presentation. We heard about empty miles. Only half of what is trucked to Vancouver is coming back in terms of truckloads. We heard about another type of emptiness in a sense, and that there's, in the US, he mentioned a 60,000 person driver shortage, and certainly that issue is a major one for Canada. And we heard about security concerns with the rise of electronic logging devices, concern about trucks being hacked, and I was introduced to the term fictitious pickups. With our third session, leveraging and integrating data for the marine sector, we heard quite a bit about the AIS source of data, real-time shipboard broadcast system, ship-to-ship and ship-to-shore with high temporal and spatial resolution. Lots of applications beyond where vessels go, and there was a sense that in many ways the surface is just being scratched. We heard from Ken Carey at the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation. We heard how the Seaway is such a major economic enabler for the region. Cargo volume is not down too much this year, all things considered. We heard about sources of delay on the Seaway to the extent that there are any. 60% were due to pilotage issues, 32, about 1/3 due to environmental issues such as high winds. With Ian Hamilton from HOPA Ports, we heard a lot about the multimodal integration pillar that's going to push data and analytical insights out to the community. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later on as well. We know that We have, this is all part of two other GTHA pillars that Louis Paul has alluded to. So we're moving towards solution-based packages and no need for stakeholders who are interested in these questions to manage large data on their own. The final event, infrastructure improvements in the supply chain, a very interesting presentation from the CBSA. There was a strong sense of the importance of digital infrastructure as it's merging in the present and into the future. It was mentioned that legacy systems are still prominent, but they're declining. And with the CBA, the question that was always on their mind: where does the risk lie? Where does it reside? We heard about a couple of interesting pilot programs where CBSA personnel are getting access to systems of couriers, and where CBSA officers are moving into the pre-clearance commercial stream. We heard from the City of Hamilton, economic developments and transportation planning. Basically, it's boom times in Hamilton as far as industrial developments are concerned, 1.5 million square feet citywide, and multimodality is a strong theme in that domain. We heard about the potential role of telecommuting and other forms of transportation demand management to see if we can maintain some of these improved traffic patterns that we've seen this year into the future. We heard from the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, Michael Casey, about the GGH transportation plan. We're seeking an integrated multimodal system to support a competitive economy and communities, a platform for building partnerships and common objectives. We also heard about the creation of a strategic goods movement network, which is being identified at present, and also how their work is revealing that gap analysis is indicating that current infrastructure will not suffice over time. So with that quick summary of the 4 sessions, I thought about it a bit, and this is to some extent subjective. And here are a few opportunities and challenges that I identified. I probably don't have time to go into all of them. Omni-channel was mentioned by David Short as something that was emerging as very prominent. There's opportunities perhaps in Niagara to get, since US carriers are not necessarily interested in traveling deep into Canadian territory in some cases. Cooperating to leverage data, the AIS is a good example. The cost advantage of Pearson, this was noteworthy, or sorry, of Hamilton International over Pearson, this was noted by Brett Gaspar. And from my presentation, there was sort of an indication that there's differential knowledge in firms, and that there may be opportunities to better inform and educate about the true potential of supply chains. As far as challenges, sort of keeping this region small enough in a sense in terms of travel times, so that outlying firms can interact strongly with the core of the GTHA. That certainly came up as an issue in the surveys. From Marcy Birchfield, she was stressing managing conflicts between land use and a congested environment. This was an interesting point from the CBSA, where they have to deliver on a mandate in the context of another agency's infrastructure, which in that case was Canada Post. But it just gives you a sense of potential complexities with these types of multi-stakeholder, multi-party relations, and we wonder if we'll get other examples that are similar to this as different firms and organizations increasingly collaborate. This one fairly self-explanatory, and this one was brought to us by David Short from Challenger. He said there's a lot of talk about nearshoring and onshoring nowadays, but he noted that there's significant infrastructure requirements associated with actually bringing that to reality. So with that quick overview, I'll say thank you, and we shall move on to our next presentation. Richard.
Thanks, Mark, and appreciate that summary. You did a great job kind of pulling it all together in terms of what's been talked about in the past. As people move into their sessions later on, looking at opportunities and challenges, will we be able to share that with people? That last slide you had, Laura, maybe we can, between you and Mark, can sort that out, because I think that might be helpful. Okay, any questions for Mark on what he's presented so far? If you have any, just raise your hand or just to unmute and jump in. Okay, I'm not seeing any off the top, so we'll move on then to introduce Dale Thulin, who you've heard about already from Saiedeh. He's the Manager of Supply Chain Innovation Performance from the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. Dale will provide an overview of supply chain visibility initiatives linked to the very busy port of Vancouver, and will highlight some of the lessons learned in the past decade from aligning a diverse array of stakeholders in support of greater visibility. So again, thank you, Dale, for being here. Over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everyone. It's great to be able to meet with you and share some of our experiences around the West Coast Supply Chain Visibility Program. I know we've worked closely with Louis Paul in the past, and he probably understands a lot of what you're going to see here. It can be a challenge. So quickly, just a little bit of housekeeping. Everything that you're going to hear in the presentation is really a collaborative effort or a joint effort between Transport Canada, the Port of Vancouver, and the Port of Prince Rupert. So it's, everybody, all three are sharing in the funding for the program and supporting it, supporting the development of it over the next couple of years. I wanted to take just a second to do a quick Port of Vancouver overview, because I think it helps maybe provide some context to what we're going to talk about around the visibility program. But and maybe you can see why we are having to take on this visibility initiative. The Port of Vancouver is the third largest and most diversified port in North America. Last year, we moved 144 million tons of cargo. That's really broken down into roughly 100 million tons of bulk cargo, which is predominantly coal, grain, and fertilizers. We move 3.4 million TEUs a year, 400,000 automobiles, basically, or virtually every car imported from Asia into Canada comes through, and sold in Canada comes through the Port of Vancouver. We also do, when we have a cruise season, obviously we didn't have one this year, we do about 1.1 million passengers. We're the home port for the Alaska cruise industry. Annually, we do about $200 billion in trade. We have 20 plus marine terminals within our jurisdiction, 3 Class 1 railways. We license 80 drayage companies, trucking companies, and roughly 1,700 trucks to move the containers to and from the port terminals. One note, it was mentioned that you've looked at an initiative with Geotab. We've been working with Geotab for about the last 8 years now on a program where we have port-owned GPS locators in all the licensed trucks, and it allows us to track the trucks basically 24 hours a day through all their activity within port. We also touch on 16 municipalities and First Nations. And our forecast is over the next 5 years, we're going to add 30 million more tons to the 144 million. So, within the next 5 years, we'll be over 200 million tons a year. To put it in perspective, 30 million tons is equivalent to what the Port of Montreal does right now, which is the second largest port. So we're looking to add that over the next 5 years into the basket of our business. So moving into onto a little bit of an overview on the visibility program. Like I mentioned, it's a joint effort between ourselves, Transport Canada, and the Port of Prince Rupert. And I want to emphasize this, and our gateway or our industry partners. So what we're trying to do is start to use technology to get better insights into activity and create what we're calling a single source of truth, or the system of record for goods movement passing through basically the west coast of Canada. So by taking in Prince Rupert and Vancouver, you've basically got the west coast covered. So we've created what we're calling the West Coast Supply Chain Visibility Program. Louis Paul knows this, but it's gone through a number of different changes. Name changes. We started with a rail visibility program that did not go over very well. It was then changed to the Supply Chain Visibility Program, which was focused strictly on Vancouver. When we brought Prince Rupert in, we then changed the scope and the name to the West Coast Supply Chain Visibility Program. What we see under this program is a series of strategic initiatives that are really designed to create what we're calling a digital backbone to support enhanced collaboration and optimization across the entire Western Canadian supply chain. So we're not just focused on what's happening within our jurisdiction here in Vancouver or Rupert, but we really found through our proof of concept or our pilot, it was important to be able to look at the entire end-to-end trip. So we're expecting that, given the complexities and the number of stakeholders involved, that this is going to be a multi-phase, multi-year program to develop these series of operational planning and optimization tools. With really, the focus is to really help support industry in improving the fluidity, resiliency, and utilization of the supply chain. On top of that, we were challenged by Transport Canada to, in effect, start utilizing the infrastructure assets better. So really trying to, there's been a lot of money, infrastructure money put into our gateway, at least over the last few years. The real, we were challenged now that the infrastructure is in place. We need to start utilizing it more efficiently, start increasing the capacity of that infrastructure. So, we're suggesting that technology will help complement kind of that challenge to better utilize or more effectively utilize the network. Quick overview. I think I've mentioned, the overall program objective is to create the digital backbone to support collaboration and optimization. We feel that in looking at it, there are 4 pillars of work underneath this objective that need to be addressed to allow us to get to that point where we've got, that digital backbone in place. So one is creating the infrastructure, having a solid platform in place to build off of and to support the dashboards in these various initiatives. The second, and probably the most important pillar of work, is enhancing stakeholder collaboration and engagement. We have found you cannot do something like this without the complete support of industry. You need industry, you need their experience, you need their data. So, that's, we look at that as a very critical pillar of us starting to achieve our objectives. The third is collecting a comprehensive data set. You can't do something like this without really, really solid data. So we work quite closely with both railways and the terminals here in Vancouver to collect this data on basically a daily basis that helps support our pilot, and we'll look to expand upon that as we move the program forward. And then, it comes back to, building those capabilities for fact-based decision-making. You need to be able to present the evidence to the industry to help, foster that collaboration and that, kind of that working together to start addressing, some of these opportunities for improvement that will be driven out of the visibility reporting. I'll just touch on this briefly. I know we're a little limited for time, but to give you a sense of what we've done and where we're going, we ran a pilot dashboard starting in 2018 that looked at creating a near real-time dashboard that monitored or looked at supply chain performance or end-to-end supply chain performance within the bulk sector. So that, roughly looking at grain, coal, and fertilizer, that represents, like I mentioned, probably, 50 or 60% of our total volume is in those 3 commodities. So we focused on that. We looked at working with the railways and the bulk terminals, and we only looked at the export side of our business. That was our pilot. As we move into the program, we're looking to build out the dashboard and the reporting to include all goods moving through both ports of Vancouver and Prince Rupert are kind of the target that we've had set for us is by the end of 2022, we expect to have 95% of all cargo moving through both ports included under this program. This is just a quick overview of the dashboard that we created or that we've developed for the bulk cargo shipments coming through Vancouver. We broke it down into having an executive summary, which is really, a quick 2-minute overview of current operating performance. It looks at activity in the pipeline, what we call our gateway cycle time, which is really an indicator of operating fluidity within our jurisdiction, and some vessel and terminal loading metrics. So it's really designed to give the reader a quick overview every morning of how the network is performing. And then from this, we break we have 3 additional dashboards that break into more detail a view of cycle time, throughput, and efficiency. So, it's really designed to start at a high level and then break it down into more granular level as you go through the dashboards. Gateway participation, as I mentioned, it's incredibly important to have, the complete support of industry and gateway partners in this. So what we've done to help, foster that collaboration or that support is we've got a steering committee that's in place that has representation from all the key or senior representation from all the key sectors, being the ports, Transport Canada, the railways, and the major shippers and terminal operators. And it's really designed to provide some guidance or direction on how we move the program forward. We also, through the pilot, established industry working groups where we basically facilitated these working groups. We really, kind of challenged the industry participants to help or to design the measures that are embedded in our dashboard. We really wanted it to be seen as, and it's not something the Port or Transport Canada was driving, but this was a collaborative effort from industry to develop a set of measures that could be embedded in this dashboard and provide an end-to-end view of operating performance. So success criteria and program ambition, there's a lot to take in on this slide, but I'm just going to focus on the supply chain visibility program aims, the 5 key areas that we were looking at to get from this program. And the first one was to offer a non-biased, comprehensive system of record for the Western Canadian supply chain. We wanted to be seen as that independent source that would be responsible for creating a system of record for Western Canadian supply chain performance. There's a lot of, industry-specific reporting that goes on that is maybe slanted in one direction or another, and is maybe, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, but maybe it's not a fair and balanced view. So what we wanted to be seen as is offering that non-biased view of Western Canadian supply chain performance. From this program, we also want to improve the collective competitive position of the gateway, by hopefully, working with industry to improve operating efficiencies, optimizing shipments across the network. It puts the gateway overall and all those involved in the gateway in a better competitive position. The third objective, and this is the one that I think that we're really excited about, is that we want to build a solution that goes beyond reporting and visibility. And there's value to be gained by looking at what happened yesterday or a week ago or a month ago. The real value is being able to leverage that data to provide some forward-looking insights and information, to craft those tools that will aid industry in better planning to move cargo through both of our ports. So that, that is really our primary focus. We see this program as, the first step is building the foundation to have the historical reporting, but then layering on top of that and adding these various tools that will really support industry and in better operating within both ports. We feel that there's a great opportunity here to create value and increase capacity and operating efficiencies across the network and for the gateway itself. And then, it comes back to this point again, involving all key players and commodities in the gateway by securing the data and providing access to the tools for decision making. It's really what it comes down to is, how can we support industry in making smarter, more effective decisions on moving cargo through Vancouver and Prince Rupert. So, lessons learned. So that's a short overview of our program, and in talking to Mark, I think he was, looking to maybe have us, talk about maybe the lessons that we've learned over the last 2.5 years as we've been undertaking this program. We went into the program thinking that this was a technical initiative where, we would build a dashboard and everything would be great. We quickly found out that it is not a technical program or initiative. The technical part is easy. Collecting the data and building a dashboard is easy. It's the stakeholder engagement and the collaboration that is the difficult part, and it's ongoing. You need to, at least in our case, there's been a lot of effort in establishing, that stakeholder engagement initially, but continuing it throughout the program. You need to keep building on it. So industry must be fully engaged in the initiative. They own the data, they understand their business. So, you really need their support and their involvement, I think. And, I think what we found, to get that, there has to be a benefit seen, but industry has to see the benefit in what this program can deliver for them. So really a lot of it kind of comes down to what's in it for me. So I can't emphasize enough the need to, have the full support of industry whenever you're dealing with anything around, data and creating, visibility into supply chain activity. We wanted to follow this second bullet point is something that we wanted to follow. We wanted our program to be seen as created by industry for the industry. We will act as a facilitator. We will act as the, one of the funding partners for this program through the development phase. But, everything that we've done to date has really been, driven by input from the industry. I think we identified that you need a neutral, trusted third party to lead the initiative. And I think through the pilot, that's where, I think that's the role that we played, that, this was not something that you could rely on industry to do on their own to collaborate on an initiative like this. I'll also be honest, I think there was a little bit of pushback about Transport Canada leading an initiative like this as well. So, it seemed like it fell to us, and we were happy to take on the responsibility. But, for something of the scope that we're proposing, you really do need that neutral, trusted third party to lead it. Another thing that we heard constantly through the pilot was the need to agree on reporting protocols. And, I guess what that refers to is there's a lot of, by turning over data to that trusted third party, all of the industry partners are opening themselves up a little bit or exposing themselves a little bit. And there were initially some real concerns about how performance would be reported and to what level of detail. So we worked quite closely with industry on establishing some agreed upon reporting protocols. So for our pilot, the agreement that we had was that we could report performance at the aggregate level or the network level. We could take it down to the commodity level, but we could not publicly report anything at the company level. Okay, and it was really to protect to protect commercial sensitivities. Okay, the dashboard we've built is available to the industry themselves, and each of the industry participants can view their own individual company performance, but they cannot see the performance of their competitors. Data hosting and security was also a huge issue for us. There was a lot of comments from industry about not wanting the port or Transport Canada to host the data, and mainly because it was important if you're collecting all of this competitively sensitive or commercially sensitive information. They wanted to ensure that it was tightly held and secure. So we contracted with Deloitte Consulting to work with us in developing the dashboard itself and providing the hosting and ensuring that the appropriate security measures are in place to ensure that the data is not accessible. So that was, those last two bullet points came up constantly through all of the discussions with our industry partners. It was a real challenge to get a lot of these very traditional industries to open up and start sharing data. So, I guess, as you move forward with your programs, that's probably something to be aware of. Okay. That is my presentation. So this is just a little overview of part of the Port of Vancouver.
Excellent, Dale. Thanks very much. Wow, you've come a long way in advancing this work. Clearly, you've learned an awful lot from it, and sharing those learnings with us has been really, really important for us, I think, because as we step forward into getting into some of this work, why would we want to reinvent the wheel and go through the same issues? So thank you so much for that and providing those insights for us. And folks, I hope you'll take those to note as you start to work in your work groups in terms of things we need to worry about and think about. So unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, so I'm going to move on then.